There are exactly 7 words that will make a narcissist recoil from you like you've just held up a crucifix to a vampire. And the reason these words are so powerful isn't because they're cruel or cutting. It's because they're true. And narcissists, more than anything else, are terrified of the truth. Let's be brutally honest about something. Most people fail and fail catastrophically when they try to confront a narcissist. Why? Because they walk onto a battlefield of the narcissist's choosing, armed with weapons that are not only useless, but actually give the enemy strength. You bring your emotion, you bring your sense of fairness, you bring your desire for resolution and mutual understanding. And to the narcissist, these things are not tools for connection, they are vulnerabilities to be exploited. You are essentially trying to have a rational argument with a hurricane. It's a fool's errand. The fundamental error is this: you believe you are in a negotiation when in fact you are in a war. It's a war of psychological reality. The narcissist constructs a distorted world, a warped map of reality where they are the heroic, aggrieved center of the universe, and you are the flawed, irrational, and endlessly indebted supporting character. Every emotional reaction you have, your anger, your tears, your desperate explanations, is you agreeing to use their map. You are validating their twisted reality by operating within its borders. And on that terrain, they will always win. The shift in power, and believe me, it is a tectonic shift, occurs the very moment you stop reacting and start responding. An emotional reaction is a chaotic, gut-level burst of energy. It's the flinch, the cry, the outburst. A strategic response, on the other hand, is a calm, deliberate act of will. It is the conscious decision to throw their map in the fire and to stand firmly on the ground of what you know to be true. This is where language becomes your greatest weapon, not as a club to beat them with, but as a hammer and nails to build a structure of reality so solid that their illusion simply cannot penetrate it. To understand why this works, you have to look underneath the hood. You have to understand what truly drives the machine of narcissism. What does a narcissist actually fear beneath the grandiose posturing and the self-aggrandizing monologues? It isn't your anger. It isn't your logic. It is, quite simply, exposure. Their entire personality is a fortress built brick by painful brick around a core of profound inadequacy and shame. It's a grand, glittering castle constructed to hide a terrified, wounded child within. This isn't an excuse for their behavior, not in the least. It is a strategic observation. Their greatest fear is that someone will see the cracks in the fortress wall, that someone will catch a glimpse of the pathetic reality they are so desperately trying to conceal. They live in mortal terror of being truly seen. This is why certain words, spoken with clarity and without malice, act as psychological triggers. These words don't attack the fortress, they simply illuminate it. They hold up a mirror. And in that mirror, the narcissist is forced to see not the reflection of the God they imagine themselves to be, but the faint outline of the fraud they fear they are. It is the psychology of shame in its purest form. They are not afraid you will hurt them. They are afraid you will see them for what they are, and that the seeing itself will annihilate the illusion they depend on for their very existence. I want you to think about this for a moment, and I'm serious about this. Pause and reflect. Have you ever said something to a difficult person that made them immediately back down, and you weren't even sure why it worked? Maybe you were just tired. Maybe you ran out of energy to fight, and you said something simple and direct. And suddenly the storm stopped. There's a science to this, a deep psychology, and I want you to consider your own experiences as we unpack it. What was it you said? What was the tone? And what was the result? Because you may have stumbled upon this principle without even realizing it. This brings us to the framework of verbal boundaries. Let's be deadly clear about this. Setting a boundary with language is not an act of aggression. Aggression is an attempt to control or harm another person. Assertive truth-telling, which is what we are discussing, is an act of self-control. It is the refusal to have your reality dictated to you. Think of it like a property line. Aggression is invading your neighbor's yard. Setting a boundary is simply standing on your own property and stating calmly and firmly, you may not cross this line. The words themselves, which we will get to, are only half the equation. Your tone and delivery are what give them their power. A boundary screamed in anger is not a boundary. It is an invitation to a fight. It signals that you are still operating on the battlefield of emotion, and the narcissist will gladly meet you there. But a boundary stated with the calm, unwavering finality of a mathematical truth, that is something their mind cannot process. It's like dividing by zero. It breaks the game. Your calm authority becomes a mirror reflecting their chaos, and it is a sight they cannot stand. So what happens when you learn to do this? What is the transformation that awaits you on the other side of this fear? It's not just about managing a difficult relationship. It's about a fundamental change in your own being, the respect that you will begin to feel from others, and most importantly, from the narcissist, is not something they choose to give you. It is something that emerges as a natural consequence of your own self-respect. You cease to be a pawn in their game because you have chosen to stop playing. You begin the journey from being a character in their story to being the author of your own. And that truly is where power lies. Here's something that's going to make you uncomfortable. Narcissists don't disrespect you because you're weak. They disrespect you because they sense you have something they desperately want, but can never truly possess: authentic self-worth. And that terrifies them. The selection of a target by a narcissist is not a random act of malice. It's a predatory calculation, an instinct honed over a lifetime of seeking what they lack. Think of a wolf pack. They don't just attack any animal in the herd. They watch. They test. They look for a specific set of characteristics. And contrary to what you might think, they are not drawn to the weakest members. They are often drawn to the strongest, to the ones with the most vitality, because that is where the greatest prize lies. So, what qualities make you so damn attractive to a manipulator? First and foremost, your empathy. Your capacity to feel, to understand, to give the benefit of the doubt. This is a foreign language to the narcissist, but one they know how to exploit. They see your empathy not as a strength, but as an unlocked door. Your competence is another beacon. You are good at what you do. You have skills. You have discipline. You produce results. This competence is a resource they wish to co-opt, to claim as their own. It feeds their delusion of grandeur. And finally, your integrity, your fundamental decency, your commitment to the truth, your desire to do the right thing. This is perhaps the most potent lure of all. Because you are honest, you assume others are as well. Because you are conscientious, you cannot easily conceive of someone who operates without a conscience. Your strength, paradoxically, becomes your vulnerability. It is the terrible irony of the predator-prey dynamic. The very light you possess is what draws the darkness to you. The narcissist sees your integrated self, your genuine capacity for warmth and achievement, and it is both a source of deep envy and a target for demolition. They want to consume it, and failing that, to destroy it so that its existence no longer reminds them of their own hollow core. Once a target is identified, the testing begins. And you have to understand these are not overt assaults, not at first. They are subtle probes, psychological experiments designed to measure your defenses. It might be a small, backhanded compliment. It might be a promise that is forgotten. It might be a joke made at your expense that is just sharp enough to sting, but presented lightly enough that if you object, you become the one with no sense of humor. Each of these is a little experiment. The narcissist is asking a question. Will you tolerate this? Can I get away with this? Your reaction, or lack thereof, is the data they collect. If you laugh it off, if you make excuses for them, if you let it slide in the name of keeping the peace, you have just told them everything they need to know. You have shown them the blueprint to your boundaries. And based on that data, they escalate. The forgotten promise becomes a broken commitment. The sarcastic joke becomes a humiliating insult in front of others. It is a systematic, incremental violation of your sovereignty. This is the crucial difference between normal human conflict and the calculated disrespect of a narcissist. In a healthy relationship, conflict arises and is resolved. It's a dance of negotiation. With a narcissist, it isn't conflict, it's a campaign. It is a methodical erosion of your standards, one small disrespect at a time, until you find yourself standing on ground you swore you would never concede. This escalation is what I call the disrespect cycle, and it is a form of psychological conditioning as insidious as any ever devised. It starts with a minor transgression. You feel a prick of annoyance, a sense of injustice, but you override it. Why? Because you're a decent person. You don't want to make a scene over something so small. But that small violation, once accepted, becomes the new baseline for the relationship. The next violation will be slightly larger, and the one after that larger still. The narcissist needs you to accept this escalating pattern of poor treatment because it serves a vital purpose. It continuously reinforces their distorted reality. In their world, they are entitled to special treatment, and your acceptance of their disrespect is your silent agreement. You are being conditioned step by step to accept the unacceptable. Each time you fail to hold the line moves. And what's truly terrifying is how quickly a person can adapt. The human psyche is built for adaptation, but that feature can be turned against us. Disrespect, when it is constant and incremental, can start to feel normal. The state of being on edge, of walking on eggshells, of constantly managing their moods, this becomes your new reality. You forget what it was like to be treated with simple baseline decency. The abnormal has been normalized. So why do good people, empathetic, conscientious, well-meaning people, so often struggle to even recognize this process as it's happening? The primary reason is that your internal response patterns are working against you. Your natural desire for harmony, for smoothing things over, for seeing the best in people, is a liability in this context. You project your own decency onto them. You think they can't possibly mean it that way, or they're just having a bad day. You engage in a form of self-deception because the alternative, that this person is deliberately and systematically disrespecting you, is too monstrous a thought to entertain. This leads to a profound and debilitating self-doubt. You begin to question your own perceptions. Am I being too sensitive? Am I overreacting? This is the narcissist's greatest trick, to convince you that the problem isn't their behavior, but your reaction to it. You become an unreliable narrator in your own life story. But there comes a moment, a breaking point. It might be a disrespect so blatant, so undeniable, that it shatters the fog of self-doubt. It is the moment when the accumulated weight of all the small violations becomes too heavy to bear. It is a moment of terrible clarity when you look at the dynamic for what it is and you realize with a certainty that chills you to the bone that something fundamental must change. And that change begins not with them, but with you. What I'm about to share with you are not insults or attacks. These are surgical instruments of truth. When you use these phrases, you're not trying to hurt them, you're establishing reality. And for a narcissist, reality is the most dangerous weapon of all. Weapon 20. I see what you're doing. There is perhaps no phrase more terrifying to a manipulator than this one. Why? Because their entire mode of operation depends on the plausible deniability of their motives. They thrive in the fog of ambiguity. The passive-aggressive comment, the subtle put down, the innocent question designed to sow insecurity. These are their stock in trade precisely because they can retreat from them. They can claim you misunderstood, that you're too sensitive. But the statement, I see what you're doing, cuts through that fog like a laser. It is a declaration that you are not fooled. You are not a pawn in their game. You are a conscious observer of it. You are pulling back the curtain and exposing the pathetic little man operating the levers. This phrase doesn't require a follow-up. You don't need to explain what you see. The power is in the ambiguity of your awareness. It communicates, the game is up. I am on to you. And in that moment, the power dynamic shifts irrevocably. You have taken away their primary weapon, the camouflage of pretended innocence. They are exposed, and exposure is a narcissist's deepest fear. Weapon to thee? That's not my responsibility. The narcissist is a master of outsourcing responsibility. Their failures, their bad moods, their chaotic lives, these are never their own fault. They are a consequence of your inadequacy, your lack of support, your failure to anticipate their needs. They hand you the heavy burden of their own emotional and practical dysfunction and expect you to carry it. The phrase, "that's not my responsibility," is you handing that burden right back. It is a radical act of boundary setting. It draws a clear, bright line around your own sovereignty. It states that you will be responsible for your own actions and emotions, and they must be responsible for theirs. This will feel unnatural at first, especially if you are an empathetic and conscientious person. You are wired to help. But you must learn the crucial difference between helping someone and enabling them. Carrying their emotional water for them is not helping. It is enabling their pathology. When you refuse to take responsibility for their problems, you are not being cruel. You are forcing them, perhaps for the first time, to confront the consequences of their own choices. It is a liberation, both for you and, in a strange and painful way, for them. Weapon 30, I won't be spoken to that way. This is not a request. It is a decree. It is the establishment of a non-negotiable standard for civil discourse. Narcissists systematically erode your standards of treatment through escalating disrespect. They test you with small slights, and when you tolerate them, they escalate. This phrase halts that process dead in its tracks. It is crucial that this is delivered with calm finality, not with anger. Anger says, "You've hurt me." Calm finality says, "That is a line you will not cross." There is a world of difference. One invites a fight, the other ends a violation. This is not a threat. A threat is, if you speak to me that way, I will. A boundary is simply a statement of what you will and will not accept. I won't be spoken to that way requires no further justification. It is a fundamental declaration of self-worth. It says, I am a person who deserves basic respect, and that is the price of admission for interacting with me. Weapon 40, your feelings about this are not my problem. Narcissists weaponize their emotions. Their rage, their tears, their pouting, their dramatic sighs of victimhood. These are not genuine expressions of feeling. They are manipulative tactics designed to control your behavior. They want you to scurry around trying to manage their emotional state, to placate their anger, to soothe their manufactured hurt. They make you believe that their emotional stability is your responsibility. This phrase severs that manipulative cord. It is a profound declaration of emotional independence. It says, you are a grown adult and you are solely responsible for your own emotional reactions. This will feel incredibly harsh because decent people feel a responsibility to the emotions of others. But you must understand, you are not responsible for regulating the feelings of another adult. By refusing to engage in their emotional drama, you are returning autonomy to them. You are forcing them to sit with their own feelings instead of using them as a club to beat you with. It is a powerful, paradigm-shifting statement that dismantles one of their most effective tools of control. Weapon 50, I don't need to justify myself to you. Have you ever found yourself in a circular argument with a narcissist, endlessly explaining and defending your decisions, your feelings, your very existence? This is a deliberate trap. They act as a prosecutor, and you are put on the stand. They demand that you justify yourself, and the more you explain, the more ammunition you give them to twist your words and find new avenues of attack. It's a game you can never win. Explaining is a position of weakness. It signals that you believe their approval is required for your decisions to be valid. The phrase, I don't need to justify myself to you, is your refusal to take the stand. It communicates that you are the ultimate authority in your own life. Your decisions are yours. Your reasons are yours. You do not require their validation or their permission. Standing in the quiet confidence of your own choices without the desperate need for their endorsement is a profoundly powerful position. Weapon 6C, this conversation is over. This is the eject button. It is the tool you use when a discussion has devolved into a word salad, a nonsensical, circular, and exhausting monologue designed to confuse and dominate you, not to communicate. You are not required to participate in a conversation that is going nowhere. You are not obligated to be an audience for their circular logic and gaslighting. Stating, "This conversation is over," and then physically removing yourself by walking out of the room or hanging up the phone is the ultimate reinforcement of a verbal boundary. It demonstrates that your time and mental energy are valuable resources that you will not squander on fruitless, toxic interactions. It shows through action that you mean what you say. Weapon 70, I'm not interested in your opinion of me. This is it. This is the kill shot to the heart of the narcissistic dynamic. The entire relationship from their perspective is predicated on their role as the judge and you as the one being judged. They need you to need their approval. They need you to fear their disapproval. Their opinion is the currency of their power. When you state calmly and as a matter of fact that their opinion of you is irrelevant, you have just bankrupted their entire system. You have declared your independence from their judgment. This is not something you say in a fit of pique. It is a statement of achieved self-validation. It says, I know who I am. I have my own moral compass. I have my own sense of worth. And your assessment is quite simply no longer required. This is the ultimate freedom. It is the moment you stop looking to them for a reflection of yourself and find it within. The reason these phrases are so devastating to narcissists isn't because they're mean. It's because they destroy the fundamental lie that their entire personality is built upon. And when you understand this lie, you'll understand why your words have the power to completely disarm them. To understand the power of these phrases, you must first grasp the monumental and precarious architecture of the narcissistic psyche. The narcissist has constructed what is best described as a false self, a grandiose and inflated persona designed for one purpose, and one purpose only: to solicit a continuous stream of external validation, which they call narcissistic supply. This false self is a fictional character, heroic, brilliant, uniquely victimized, and supremely important. But here's the crucial point: it is an edifice with no foundation. It is a hollow god. And like any false idol, it requires constant worship from the outside world to maintain the illusion of its divinity. This endless need for validation is not mere arrogance. It is a desperate existential necessity. Without the reflection of admiration in the eyes of others, the false self begins to crumble, threatening to expose the void it was built to conceal. This is why a simple challenge, a boundary, or a refusal to play along is not perceived as a minor disagreement. To the narcissist, it is a seismic threat to their entire psychological structure. It is a crack in the idol. When you say, I see what you're doing, or that's not my responsibility, you are refusing to provide the worship the false self requires. You are, in that moment, an apostate, a non-believer, and your dissent threatens to reveal to the narcissist, and worse, to the world, that their God is a fraud. This is the critical distinction between healthy self-confidence and pathological grandiosity. The confident person has an internal locus of control. Their self-worth is generated from within based on competence and experience. The grandiose person has an external locus of control. Their sense of self is a fragile reflection, entirely dependent on the opinions and reactions of others. Your words of truth don't challenge their strength. They expose their absolute and terrifying weakness. So what lies beneath this glittering, grandiose mask? What is the terrible secret that the fortress of narcissism is built to protect? It is a core of profound, unmitigated shame. At the center of the narcissist is a deeply held belief in their own worthlessness and inadequacy. This is the wound that never healed, the primary terror from which their entire personality is a flight. They have spent their lives running from this shame. constructing an elaborate alternate reality where they are the opposite of everything they fear themselves to be. And the verbal weapons we've discussed, they are so effective because they bypass the grandiose fortress walls and speak directly to this hidden core of shame. When you refuse to accept blame, you are holding up a mirror to their own culpability. When you refuse to manage their emotions, you force them to confront their own internal chaos. When you refuse to seek their approval, you tacitly reveal that their judgment is worthless. Each of these acts is a form of exposure. And exposure to the narcissist triggers an immediate and overwhelming activation of this core shame. It is the feeling of being seen, not as the glorious idol they pretend to be, but as the flawed, contemptible being they secretly believe they are. This is a psychological state they cannot tolerate. Their defenses are designed precisely to avoid this feeling at all costs. To be truly seen is to be annihilated. Your simple, declarative statements of reality pierce the veil and force a confrontation with the very thing they have spent a lifetime trying to outrun. How does a narcissist maintain dominance in a relationship? Primarily through the strategic deployment of confusion and doubt. They are masters of the word salad, the circular argument, the gaslighting comment that makes you question your own sanity. They create a fog of emotional and intellectual chaos in which you lose your bearings. In that disoriented state, they are in control. They define reality because you have become untethered from it. Clear, direct language is the antidote to this poison. Phrases like, "This conversation is over," or "I don't need to justify myself," are acts of radical clarity. They refuse to enter the fog. They refuse to play the game of mental gymnastics. You are planting a flag in the solid ground of reality and refusing to be drawn into their swamp of confusion. By refusing to engage in their games, you render them powerless. Their control mechanisms depend entirely on your participation. Once you withdraw that participation, their tactics are revealed for what they are: pathetic and transparent attempts at manipulation. Boundaries force them to confront a reality that is not of their own making, and this is a territory where they are weak and ineffective. There is a powerful psychological phenomenon that occurs when you respond to a narcissist's chaos with unshakable calm. Your centered response acts as a mirror. Narcissists are masters of projection. They take the undesirable parts of themselves, their rage, their incompetence, their duplicity, and project them onto you. They accuse you of being angry when they are the ones raging. They call you manipulative when they are the ones playing games. This allows them to dissound their own darkness. But when you respond with calm, assertive truth, you interrupt this process. You refuse to accept the projection. You hold up a mirror, and the ugliness they tried to cast onto you is reflected directly back at them. Your calm highlights their chaos. Your rationality illuminates their irrationality. Your integrity exposes their lack of it. This mirroring effect forces them, for a brief and horrifying moment, to see themselves as they are. The discomfort this creates is immense. They are confronted with an accurate reflection of their own dysfunctional state, and it is a sight they cannot bear. Your refusal to be their emotional dumping ground forces them to sit in their own mess. This is not merely a battle of wits or a psychological game. It has a real, tangible impact on a biological level. When you enforce a firm boundary with a narcissist who is accustomed to absolute compliance, you trigger a profound stress response in their system. Their brain, which is wired to seek control and validation, suddenly encounters an immovable obstacle. This is processed not as a disagreement, but as a threat to their survival, the survival of the false self. The result is a massive activation of their sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. Their cortisol levels spike. Their heart rate increases. They are neurologically incapable of processing direct, calm confrontation, well, because it short circuits their entire manipulative apparatus. This is why they often react with either explosive rage, fight, or by abruptly shutting down and withdrawing, flight. They are, in a very real sense, cornered. Your calm boundary setting words have pushed them into a state of neurological panic from which their only escape is aggression or retreat. This isn't just theory, it is the biological basis for why these verbal techniques are so powerfully effective. Listen carefully. The most powerful words in the world are useless if you say them at the wrong time, in the wrong way, or from the wrong emotional state. Timing isn't everything. It's the only thing that matters when you're dealing with someone who's spent their entire life manipulating language. Before you ever open your mouth to utter a single one of these boundary-setting phrases, you must first master your own internal state. Your greatest weapon is not your vocabulary, it is your emotional regulation. Think of the narcissist's manipulative behavior as a hurricane of chaos. It is designed to pull you into its vortex, to make you spin with rage, fear, and confusion. And as long as you are spinning, you are lost. Your task is to become the eye of that storm. You must find the point of absolute calm within yourself while the tempest rages around you. This is not some esoteric, mystical advice. It is the most practical, strategically vital preparation you can undertake. How do you do this? You start by learning to recognize the physiological signs of your own emotional arousal. The tightened chest, the shallow breath, the racing heart. These are signals from your ancient reptilian brain that you are under threat. You must not act from this place. This is the state of reaction, not response. Before the difficult conversation you know is coming, you must consciously and deliberately center yourself. Find a quiet space. Breathe. And I don't mean just breathing, I mean physiological regulation. Slow, deep, diaphragmatic breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. This simple act sends a signal to your nervous system that you are not, in fact, about to be eaten by a predator. It pulls you out of the primitive fight or flight mode and allows your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part of your brain, to come back online. You must speak from a place of inner strength, not from a place of panicked reaction. The power of your words is directly proportional to the calm from which they are delivered. Once you have mastered your internal state, you must learn to read the external one. You do not deploy these verbal weapons indiscriminately. That would be like firing a cannon without aiming. You must become a student of the person you are dealing with. Recognize that their behavior is not random, it is cyclical. There are patterns. There are moments of grandiosity where they are impenetrable, and there are moments of insecurity and desperation, often following a narcissistic injury, where they are far more vulnerable to the truth. Your job is to identify these patterns. Watch their defensive maneuvers. Do they lash out when criticized? Do they play the victim when held accountable? Do they create chaos when they feel ignored? These are their tells, their predictable moves in the psychological chess game. You must stop allowing them to choose the time and place of conflict. They will try to ambush you when you are tired, when you are distracted, when you are publicly exposed. Your task is to refuse engagement on their terms. You wait. You observe. You choose the moment. You deliver your message not in the heat of their manufactured crisis, but in a quiet moment of your choosing, when your words will have the maximum possible impact. Timing your response is not about manipulation. It's about strategy. It's about ensuring your words land on fertile ground where they can disrupt the narcissist's psychological equilibrium most effectively, rather than being deflected by their fully engaged defenses. Now, let's talk about the delivery itself. You may have heard of the 55-38-7 rule of communication. It's a rough psychological heuristic, but it points to a fundamental truth. People receive communication through 3 channels. Only 7% of a message's impact comes from the words themselves. 38% comes from the tone of your voice. And a staggering 55% comes from your body language. You can speak the most powerful words of truth, but if your body is hunched in fear and your voice is trembling with anxiety, the message received will be one of weakness. Your physical presence must reinforce your verbal one. This is the difference between aggressive and assertive delivery. Aggression is leaning in, raising your voice, using sharp, jabbing gestures. It is a posture of attack. Assertiveness is different. It is calm, grounded, and immovable. It is standing up straight with your shoulders back, as we've discussed. It is maintaining steady, unwavering eye contact, not as a challenge, but as a simple statement of presence. Your vocal tone should be low, steady, and measured. Not a whisper, but not a shout. Think of the tone a doctor uses when delivering a serious but factual diagnosis. There is no anger, no panic, only the calm weight of reality. You must embody the boundary before you speak it. Your body and your tone must communicate. I am not a threat, but I am also not a target. I am an immovable fact. This congruent communication is something the narcissist's psyche is simply not equipped to handle. Setting the boundary is the battle. The follow-through is the war. And you must understand this the moment you set a real boundary. The narcissist will test it. They will test it immediately, and they will test it with everything they have. This is a psychological phenomenon known as an extinction burst. When a behavior that used to get a reward suddenly stops getting it, the creature will perform that behavior more intensely and frequently before it finally gives up. They will escalate. They will rage. They will love bomb. They will play the victim. They will do anything and everything to see if your new boundary is real or if it was just a bluff. Your consistency in this period is absolutely crucial. If you state a boundary and then retreat from it under pressure, you have taught them something catastrophic, that your no can be turned into a yes with enough force. You must maintain your position. Hold the line. This testing period is when the real change happens. Your steadfastness is what rewires the dynamic. Finally, you must learn the power of not speaking at all after you have stated your boundary. I won't be spoken to that way, or this conversation is over. The most powerful thing you can do is shut your mouth. Silence is a vacuum, and narcissists are pathologically incapable of tolerating a vacuum. They need constant engagement, constant reaction. Your silence is deeply unnerving to them. They will rush to fill it, and in their panicked attempt to get a reaction from you, they will often reveal their hand, expose their motives, and demonstrate their desperation. A strategic pause before you answer a provocative question can unnerve them. Holding your silence after they've had an outburst can amplify their own sense of ridiculousness. Do not mistake this for passivity. Strategic silence is an active tool. It is you in complete control, making them confront the echo of their own empty words. Here's what nobody tells you about standing up to a narcissist. It gets worse before it gets better. They're going to test every single boundary you set, push every button you have, and try to make you regret the day you found your voice. But here's the thing. If you're prepared for this, their desperation becomes your victory. The moment you implement a firm, consistent boundary, you must brace yourself for a storm. Their manipulative behavior will not just continue, it will likely escalate dramatically. This isn't a sign that your strategy is failing. On the contrary, it is the first sign that it is working. This phenomenon is known in behavioral psychology as an extinction burst. Think of it this way. Imagine a rat in a cage that has learned that pressing a lever delivers a food pellet. It has pressed the lever 1,000 times, and 1,000 times it has been rewarded. Now you switch off the mechanism. The rat presses the lever and nothing happens. Does it simply walk away? No. It will press the lever again and again, more frantically and aggressively than ever before. It will pound on the lever, bite it, and throw its whole body against it. The behavior intensifies right before it is extinguished. The narcissist is that rat. Their disrespectful behavior, their insults, their gaslighting, their emotional manipulation is the lever they have pressed 1,000 times to get what they want from you: compliance, attention, control. Your new boundary is the moment you switch off the mechanism. Their subsequent escalation is the extinction burst. They are redoubling their efforts, using the only strategy they know, because it has always worked in the past. They are not merely angry. They are in a state of profound psychological panic. You have disrupted their most fundamental tool for navigating the world. You must understand this escalation not as a personal assault, but as a predictable, mechanical response. The intensity of their backlash is a direct measure of how effective your boundary has been. The extinction burst will manifest in a variety of predictable, desperate tactics. You need to be able to identify them, not so you can counter each one, but so you can recognize them for what they are, the desperate thrashing of a drowning manipulator. First, they may attempt love bombing. Suddenly, they will become the person you always wanted them to be. They will be charming, apologetic, and attentive. They will shower you with gifts and praise. This is not a change of heart. It is a calculated tactic to lower your defenses and pull you back into the dysfunctional dynamic. It is the most insidious form of manipulation because it preys on your hope. When that fails, they will almost certainly launch a smear campaign. They will go to your friends, your family, your colleagues, anyone who will listen, and assassinate your character. They will paint you as unstable, cruel, abusive, or insane. They are experts at playing the victim, and they will recruit allies or flying monkeys, as they're often called, to do their bidding and apply pressure on you to return to your submissive role. Next comes direct emotional manipulation. They will leverage guilt, telling you how much you've hurt them, how you've abandoned them in their time of need. They will engage in profound displays of self-pity designed to trigger your empathy and make you feel responsible for their pain. And when none of that works, they will resort to threats, ultimatums, and punishment. They might threaten the relationship, your financial security, or your access to your children. They will try to punish you for your insolence by giving you the silent treatment or withholding affection. These are the desperate, last-ditch power plays of someone who has lost control and is trying to regain it through brute force. So, how do you withstand this onslaught? The answer is as simple as it is difficult. You hold the line. You must become an immovable object. Your greatest asset during this storm is the same one you used to set the boundary in the first place, your calm, regulated internal state. You must not get drawn back into arguments. You do not defend yourself against the smear campaign. You do not negotiate with emotional terrorism. When they rage, you remain calm. When they accuse, you remain silent. When they threaten, you repeat the boundary. This conversation is over. I won't be spoken to that way. Your consistency is your shield. This is a time when external support becomes absolutely critical. You cannot weather this storm alone. You need at least one person, a trusted friend, a family member, a therapist who understands the dynamic and can serve as your anchor to reality when the gaslighting gets intense. It is also wise, though it may seem cynical, to document everything. Save the abusive text messages. Write down the dates and times of manipulative conversations. This is not for them, it is for you. It is your objective record that you can turn to when their campaign of confusion makes you begin to doubt your own memory and sanity. If you can hold your position with unwavering consistency, something will eventually happen. The storm will break. The extinction burst cannot last forever. It is too psychologically and emotionally expensive. You will reach a breaking point. Not your breaking point, but theirs. You will begin to notice a shift. The active, frantic resistance will begin to subside, replaced by a kind of grudging compliance. They may not like the new reality, but they will begin to accept that it is the new reality. They will start to treat you with a baseline of caution, testing the new boundaries less frequently, like a dog that has learned which fences are electric. This is where one of two things will happen. In some rare cases, the relationship may actually improve. Having been forced to abandon their manipulative tactics, the narcissist may find a new, healthier way to relate to you, and a new, more authentic dynamic can be built on a foundation of respect. But in many cases, they will not. Unable to control you, they may simply lose interest. The relationship will wither and die because its entire foundation, their ability to manipulate you, has been removed. You must be prepared for this. you must make peace with either outcome, because the victory here is not in salvaging the relationship. The victory is in salvaging yourself. The goal is not to fix them. It is to establish a reality in which you can live with peace and integrity, whether they are in it or not. When you finally learn to speak to narcissists from a place of genuine strength, something remarkable happens. You don't just change how they treat you, you change who you are. And that transformation is so profound that it affects every relationship in your life. The act of standing up to a tyrant, even a petty household one, is no small thing. It is the oldest story of humanity, the confrontation with the dragon. For years, perhaps a lifetime, the narcissistic dynamic has been the dragon guarding the hoard of your own self-worth. It has paralyzed you with its fiery breath of criticism and its suffocating coils of manipulation. To finally face it, to speak the words of truth, and hold your ground. This is to slay that dragon. And when you do that, you don't just get the gold. You are fundamentally transformed by the act of confrontation itself. Your entire self-concept, the very story you tell yourself about who you are, is rewritten. You are no longer the frightened villager hiding from the beast. You are the hero who faced it. The confidence that arises from this is not the flimsy, inflated confidence of the ego. It is the deep, grounded confidence that comes only from voluntary confrontation with what you fear. It is the competence born of experience. You learn in your very bones that you can withstand the storm. You learn that you can define your own reality and defend its borders. And here is the crucial part. This skill is not specific to one person. It is a universal tool. The ability to set a firm boundary, to speak an uncomfortable truth, to say no and mean it. Once you have forged this tool in the fires of a narcissistic relationship, you can carry it with you everywhere. The chronic people-pleasing, the desperate, knowing need for approval from others, it begins to wither and die. It has to. Because that part of you, the part that would sacrifice your own integrity for a scrap of validation, is what fed the dragon in the first place. Its death is the necessary precondition for your own rebirth. Once you begin to embody this authentic authority, you become a walking filter. Your very presence begins to sort the people in your life into two distinct categories, and the process can be as brutal as it is liberating. You must be prepared for this. The healthy, integrated, confident people in your life will respond to your newfound strength with respect. They will appreciate your clarity. They will be relieved that they no longer have to walk on eggshells around your dysfunctional dynamic. Your relationships with these people will deepen, becoming more honest and robust. They will see you for who you are becoming. And they will celebrate it, because strength respects strength. But the unhealthy people, the manipulators, the codependents, the ones who quietly benefited from your lack of boundaries, they will react with hostility. Your strength is a direct threat to them. Your no exposes their own manipulative. Yes, they will call you selfish. They will call you cruel. They will accuse you of having changed, and they will mean it as the most damning insult. And you have to understand that they are right. You have changed. You have ceased to be a person who is useful to their pathology. Some of these relationships will not survive this recalibration. And you must have the courage to see this not as a loss, but as a necessary and healthy pruning. You are cleaning house. You are learning to enjoy the profound satisfaction of respect that has been earned, not the fleeting relief of approval that has been begged for. Having survived a narcissistic dynamic is like having had a serious illness. It's a brutal experience, but it confers a powerful immunity. You develop a kind of psychological radar, an internal early warning system for manipulative behavior. You will never be knave in the same way again. The subtle boundary tests, the overly effusive flattery of the love bomber, the slight twist of reality in a gaslighting comment, you will spot these things instantly. They will ring a bell of recognition deep in your psyche. You will feel it in your gut. This is the wisdom that is forged in fire. This immunity means that you no longer allow toxic dynamics to take root. You set boundaries from the very beginning of any new relationship, whether personal or professional. You don't wait for disrespect to escalate because you have seen firsthand how that story ends. Your standards for treatment are clear and non-negotiable from day one. You are no longer playing checkers, you are playing chess. You see the whole board, you anticipate the manipulative moves, and you refuse to engage in a game that you know is rigged. This isn't cynicism, it's competence. It's the hard, one experience that allows you to navigate the social world with clarity and strength, protecting your sovereignty as a matter of course. This transformation has an effect that ripples outward far beyond your own life. You don't have to preach a single sermon. Your very existence becomes the lesson. By living with authentic authority, you model a new way of being for everyone around you. Your friends, your colleagues, even your own children see what it means to have a spine. They see what it looks like when a person refuses to be defined by another's dysfunction. This is an incredibly powerful form of teaching. Your courage gives them courage. They see that it is possible to stand up, to speak the truth, and to survive. In doing so, you offer them a map out of their own prisons. This is how generational patterns of abuse and dysfunction are broken. It only takes one person in a family line to say, no more. The game stops with me. By refusing to participate in the pathology, by refusing to pass it down to your own children, you are altering the future. You are taking on the profound and sacred responsibility of clearing the toxic ground so that something new and healthy can grow in its place. Your personal battle becomes a legacy of freedom for others. Finally, it is essential to understand what this new strength is for. The goal is not to become aggressive or to go looking for conflict. A person who is truly strong, who is truly dangerous, has no need to constantly prove it. The objective is to become a peaceful warrior. This is the individual who has a sword, knows how to use it, but keeps it sheathed. You carry your capacity for confrontation and boundary setting not as a weapon of first resort, but as a tool to be used with precision and only when necessary. This is the balance between boundaries and compassion. Your newfound authority is not for dominating others. It is for creating a safe and stable space around you where you and the people you care about can thrive. It is for protecting the integrity of your own being so that you can engage with the world from a place of genuine warmth and strength, not from a place of fear. The responsibility that comes with this knowledge is immense. It is the responsibility to live truthfully, to carry your strength with wisdom, and to be a force for order and integrity in a world that is tilting toward chaos.